Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Rockaway Fridays with a Wave. I'm your host, Mark Healey, the editor-in-chief of The Wave, Rockaway's newspaper since 1893. Joining me today is a special guest. He is our publisher, Walter Sanchez. Good morning, Walter.
Good morning, Mark.
And we wanted to have Walter on. Walter has been a big proponent of this broadcast and all the different things that we're doing here at The Wave. We have a lot of stuff to get to. I just want to show everybody this week's front page. Bringing families together. We also have our quote of the week is from Khalil Anderson, who's now the youngest assemblyman, assemblyman-elect in the New York State Assembly for the first time in 20 years. We talked with him this week, and we talked with all the elected officials that were reelected. But we also wanted to get to a lot of other things. Obviously, people are a little tired of the election. But we still have to cover it because it's part of what we do. So I just wanted to share with folks, we talked about the other polling, Walter, last week that we had done with all the elected officials, and we were surprised by the amount of undecideds in some of the races. And really the only race that kind of really surprised people was Tom Sullivan, Joe Addabbo.
Yeah. And I communicated with Joe Addabbo that evening during the while the counting was going on, and they don't say whether they were surprised or not. They
right.
Well, it's always going to be a tough race, but I congratulated him, and it's great that the count was that close. I think it's like the presidential race.
Absolutely,
it's great. What it says about our country that it's so close is really cool. No matter who you wanted to win. So
right.
Joe knows it, and he knows he's got to step up and do some new cool things. He really wants us to get gambling here in New York. He says that's like one of his top priorities. He thinks we should get gambling because they do it in New Jersey. So people just drive over to the Palisades and they gamble there. So.
Well, look, it was Tom did even better than he did last time, Tom Sullivan. And what was interesting to me is that unlike last time, Tom had that very dramatic primary.
Yes.
That was hard fought, and he had momentum going into the race. This time, I even said to him, "How are you going to get that momentum back?" And you can't even really meet with people, but he did it. I mean, he did a great job.
We were surprised how many people were still undecided a couple of days before the election or a week before the election.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that was, whether people said, listen, don't trust the system, don't vote early, vote the day of the election. But I know there were long lines right up the block here.
Oh, yeah.
In
Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to share with people is that while a lot of people might be surprised by what's going on now with the all the votes seeming to go to Joe Biden, it looks like Joe Biden is going to have a victory speech today. Our polling that we did, which again, I want to reiterate that the polling that we did was done internally with our subscribers. It was not done, willy-nilly where everyone could just vote. So we had Joe Biden winning 58% to 39% with just 3% undecided. So while that's not going to be the final tally, it's a lot closer to what people were saying on election night, as opposed to, what's the end outcome of that is going to be. So obviously it's been a very busy week for us, week for everyone with the election. But we had some other issues. Yeah.
How many people, I know you guys did a poll about voting early. Do you remember what the outcome of that was?
Most people, I think that it was weighted towards voting early, but it wasn't. It was like 58 maybe to 58 to like 40 whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people voted early. We covered all the lines that were outside the Rockaway YMCA, which was Rockaway's early polling site. So every day there was lines.
And we might find some lines from that people that are involved with civics and local politics and local news, maybe those are people that pay attention and voted early as well.
Right. So I want to give people, I gave you a little glance of the front page, but let's do like we do every week, and let's take a little bit of a closer look at the front page. So here we go. We've got bringing families together. Maybe people are surprised that we didn't put Joe Biden or Donald Trump on the front page, but I mean, this is what we do. You know, we cover local elections, and that's why Khalil is the quote of the week. Khalil Anderson, I mentioned him before. You know, he's someone we've been dealing with for a long time. He's been an activist. He's been a community board 14 member, and now he's going to be an assembly person in a spot that was previously held by Michelle Titus, who no one ever could get a hold of. So we know that Khalil is, you know, it's definitely going to, you know, speak to us. Whether we agree with him or not is yet to be seen. But we really wanted to focus on a community cleanup here in Bell Harbor, and also another community cleanup in Arverne. So that was our front page this week. You know, we thought it was important to show that no matter what's going on in the rest of the country, Rockaway is still saying, you know, really still staying Rockaway strong. You know, we you know, cover a lot of different things here, but this week, you know, and I know, Walter, you wanted to talk about this a little bit, was our editorial this week.
Can I ask you now?
Of course.
Yeah. You know, so the idea of a community weekly newspaper, and especially one with the legacy that we have at the Wave, is that you have all points of view in your paper. That you actually let people use your platform to talk about, you know, what they believe in. And the challenges with that are that many people don't understand the difference between a newspaper and a newsletter. And a newsletter will put out only one side of the opinion, only one side, whether it's right or left, so you've come up with that challenge this week, and you hit it head on with an editorial. And that's why I'm so glad that, you know, I'm on your show this week, because, you know, I wanted to talk to you about that. And you wrote an editorial. So talk to us about what happened, the Rockaway Revolution. What is the Rockaway Revolution? What does it mean? And then how did some of your subscribers, and now that there is social media, which there wasn't 10, 15 years ago,
right,
beating us up on it, and we're not afraid of that, because we are the newspaper here, and that's it. We're always going to have both sides. So talk about your challenge and how you hit it head on in your editorial.
Well, look, we earlier this week, actually earlier last week, the folks from Rockaway Revolution had contacted me, and they had said, hey, we'd love to put an op-ed in the paper next week. Now, they've done op-eds before, so I was a little surprised why people were surprised at Rockaway Revolution.
And what's their mission?
Rockaway Revolution is a group of people that are, you know, tend to be very progressive. They are new residents to Rockaway. Some of them have lived here for about 10 years, you know, 15 years. And as you know, as the political climate of, you know, the Queens has changed, as the city has changed, they've changed along with it. You know, they sense that Rockaway can sometimes be a little oppressive. You know, they feel that Rockaway can be a little divisive. So this is a group, and I know all their members.
When you say Rockaway, you mean the political people in Rockaway? You mean the business people?
I'm not the business. I mean, really, it's just you know, the climate of the civics and how, you know, people are legislating, and how you know, even the paper, you know, they sometimes disagree with us.
Right.
So Rockaway Revolution, I know them very well. They send us stuff from time to time. We cover their events. They've been around for about 2 years, right? So they're somebody that's been vetted, right? I wouldn't give that platform. I wouldn't allow just anyone to write an op-ed.
You wouldn't?
No, of course not. I mean, I have to know. I have to speak to them a little bit. I have to verify, you know, who they are. You know, so again, for 2 years we've been covering Rockaway Revolution. So they wrote an editorial last week, an op-ed, that was, you know, very clear as to who they were supporting. And they were supporting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but they were doing so reluctantly. You know, they were more, they're even more progressive than that ticket, you know, so they wanted to make it clear that they didn't think Trump would support any of their, you know, any of the things that they feel are important, and that Biden and Harris would be somebody they could push, you know, to get their, you know, their platform.
Did you think you were going to get kickback?
No, I didn't, honestly. Because they've been in the paper before, you know, and what people usually see when they see Rockaway Revolution, I mean, they know what they're going to get, you know.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm saying? So, and we didn't do a lot of we didn't really do any national political breakdowns, because, you know, there's the New York Times for that. There's the Washington Post for that.
When you see an op-ed, is that like an opposing? Would you look at it as kind of, hey, this is something different than you would normally see in this paper or
sometimes? I mean, sometimes it already comes down to how well it's written. It's written really well, and the people support their points.
Well, your writers
whether I disagree with it, whether we disagree with it as an editorial board is really all we have to agree on is it written well? Does it attack anyone unjustly? And I don't think it hit any of those negative points.
And I know you get a lot of requests.
Oh, we get it
every week.
We get a ton.
We're a great.
We get a ton of them. We get a ton of them.
And you're very fair. I've seen stuff. You're very fair.
It's thank you, Walter. But that was the controversy. The controversy was, how could you allow a progressive group that is anti-police and anti-this and anti-that to have a platform? And I'm like, well, the "It's my turn, it's our turn" op-ed has been around for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah.
And everyone's used it, from politicians to people running for office to groups that were trying to, grow flowers to raise money for a garden. I mean, everybody gets it.
You could see people's point who are against it. If they support our paper by buying it for 50 cents on the newsstand, and they see this opinion that they're so vehemently against, you can understand them feeling that way.
But that wasn't really what the outrage was about. The outrage was about people misunderstanding what the essence of what they were reading was. They thought it was the Wave endorsing Biden, and the Wave saying that we don't do endorsements, but then we're endorsing. So, so that was really, it was really about, the outrage was misplaced. I expect the community to bite back if we do anything that is, not in line with what some of the vocal minority of the people that live in Rockaway, how they feel about something. The people who are very vocal are not always the majority.
So we have a couple of other stories this week that I need to talk about. Allison's NYPD story, right? Well,
Allison's NYPD story, which I thought was really, really interesting. We were sitting around and we were talking about somebody had called in to the office and had said, I was at, if I'm in an accident, can I call the cops? And my response was, yeah, of course. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a police report, right? I mean, that's always been the case. You get a police report, and with the police report, that's what you submit for insurance, right? I mean, that's usually what happens. But Allison Case, who was our digital editor, by the way, she asked me, and I said, as far as I know, yeah. And she said, I don't think so. I think I read something recently where, unless there's, somebody is injured, unless somebody is, there's a victim in the accident, you're not supposed to call the cops anymore.
Yeah.
Like if it's only property damage. So this is a great, one of those great things that people assume, I think, because, somebody told them once what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's changed. So we really thought it would be a great idea to include it in the paper this week, to let people know that this is indeed what, this is indeed what you're supposed to do. So definitely check it out. It's informative, and it's probably going to answer a lot of your questions.
One of the other stories that I'm sure is going to get a lot of read is Danielle Morano died, and she was found, I guess, below her apartment. Was pushed or fell out of her balcony on 17th Street in Rockaway Park, and a friend of hers is being arraigned. We don't want to talk about too much of the particulars about the story, but you did the story, so can you tell us a little bit about it?
What originally happened is that we received a phone call from, I don't want to say who we received the call from, but we got a call from someone, and they said that they had seen this happen, and that the person was thrown from
someone saw it.
They didn't see I think they only saw the aftermath, but they assumed, because they knew the person, they assumed what had happened.
Okay.
Now I can't run with that. So I called DCPI. We got another we got another notification from another source of ours who said that they didn't know what happened either, that they thought that it was suicide. When I called DCPI, the initial information that we got was that, that they were investigating preliminary as a suicide because they didn't have, a lot of information at that point. And because it was being investigated as a suicide, I wanted to wait a little bit longer because I have better resources inside the NYPD than just DCPI.
How far does the paper go into investigating a story like that? Do you wait for the DA, the indictments and things like that, or do you as a community paper talk to?
It depends on the information that I get. If I get really solid information that it's vetted, that is accurate from a reliable source, not a hearsay sourse, a reliable source.
How much time do you spend on something like this as opposed to something else? When you're looking to do your story next week and a follow-up story on this, do you put 2 reporters on something like this, or
it depends. It all depends. This particular story, I took care of it because no one has better sources than me at that level.
Are you going to do a follow-up story next week?
Of course, if we get more information. I mean, we it all depends on what information we get. I mean, a follow-up at this point, we know the person's been arrested. We know the person's been charged. The person probably won't, stand trial for a while. They're not going to be out on bail.
Okay.
I mean, there's a follow-up if the person's out on bail. That would be certainly something that, the politicians would probably like to ask them how they
time to eat pizza again.
Yeah. It's actually time for coffee, but Walter brought pizza for us today. Why don't you show everybody where we got our pizza?
One of the cool things about 129th Street is that, you got great places here. I don't know if you'd see it, but one of our favorites is La Sorrentina, and it's early enough so that we can really get a slice. I'm going to have a little bit of this. It's delicious stuff. You should try it out when you're up here.
It's great. John Mazzola, who's actually been profiled as one of our wave makers, is just a great guy and makes, and it's not just the pizza there that's great. Everything is great. We've eaten there.
Yeah.
We've had some good meals there, and John is just best. He loves the wave. We love him, and we have a picture on our. You know what? We have time. I'm going to go shoot to our Facebook page. I want people to see what happened this week when one of our wave makers met with the other wave maker. It was kind of a viral moment. So I want to show people how that went down. It was pretty cool.
While you're looking for that, so I'm going to talk about and Robin Telesano. There you go. Look at that.
So that's John Fox, retired chief, who's a big supporter of the wave, who was a wave maker, and John Mazzola, owner of La Sorrentina, who was also a wave maker. And they had this impromptu meeting, and somebody took a picture and sent it to us. So that's great stuff.
And the wave maker is the person that we profile every week, who's really done and gone out of their way for Rockaway and done incredible things out here. That, the reason that Mark puts it in is because people might not know, and a lot of times people who really get involved are humble and they don't want to talk about it. Well, we want to talk about it. But the other thing I want to talk about 129th Street is so many stores and so many great proprietors here, and we were across the street at Cross County Savings Bank yesterday and talking to their manager, Leslie Collins. And, so we were talking about with COVID, what was going on and what's happening with rates and things like that. And, apparently you learn something, new about mortgages every day, and it makes some sense. And Robin and Telesano, if you're on the call, maybe you can, on this video, maybe you can answer this question. So Leslie at Cross County was making it clear to us that, that Cross County holds the mortgages. They don't sell them. And a lot of times, when you shop that mortgage, whether it's Lending Tree or whatever it is, that you take a mortgage you have a mortgage, and then they sell it to somebody else, and they might sell it to somebody else in a portfolio. And in times of COVID, that might be a little bit more of a challenge where Cross County keeps that mortgage and holds it and stays with you. Mr. Intellisano, how you doing there? Now, Mr. Intellisano, before I ask a question, I'm going to say, I've been to some of Robert's seminars, a financial advisor that we trust him. I mean, we ask him any question about finance and banking and things like that. And if he doesn't know the answer, he's not going to make something up. And the most important thing about the financial advisor is that trust, and that you're going to get the right answers, and he's going to point you to somebody who can give you even a better answer. I've asked him everything from employee stock ownership plans to banking things. And so what about a bank holding the mortgage and not selling it, not giving it to somebody else? Why is that important?
Well, maybe we should introduce who he is to the audience. That's what happens when you have Cosell in the booth, Robert. He jumps over everything. It's his first time on. He's taking over the show. Robert Intellisano, he is the columnist that works for us. He is the Financial Wave. You see it every week in the Wave. I look forward to reading it every week. I learn something new every week. And you're also known as the insurance doctor. So welcome to the show, Robert Intellisano.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate that. And happy Friday to all Wave readers. How are you? So, yeah, as far as Walter's point, I like that bank. And one of the advantages, when they're holding the mortgage is you're not dealing with a third party. So, the small banks, in my opinion, give you like the warm community feel, as opposed to some of the mammoth banks that can be a little, factory-like, little cold transitional. And so, yeah, I mean, I like the warm banks, and kind of like Cheers, where everyone knows your name. So, it's always good. And if you had a situation, especially now during COVID with forbearance, there's a whole procedure for forbearance where a lot of mortgages are sold to third parties. I had this situation with myself with Wells Fargo, and I tried a forbearance just to test it out, to do it myself, to advise my clients during COVID. And, it took a week, 2 weeks to go to a third party who they sold my mortgage to. Well, had I had, Cross County Bank, that would have been addressed immediately. I would just walk in, they say, hello, Robert. And, it's a much easier relationship and transaction like Cheers, where everyone knows your name.
And that's so much like 129th Street here in Bell Harbor. Everybody knows everybody else. You walk outside, everybody's smiling, and you have that one bank on this block, Cross County. And, so I just wanted to bring that up to you. I thought that was very interesting. You're doing a great job in the Wave, by the way.
Thank you, Walter.
So, especially I think that your focus, certainly, I don't think that we even envisioned that you would be writing this much in the very beginning when we spoke about it, Robert, because, this was before the pandemic. This was before, we thought it was going to be like one of those monthly how-to columns. And really what it's come down to is you're giving people every week some real actionable things, tips and advice that they can do in and outside the financial world. So it's really grown. So why don't you talk about how that process kind of changed for you while this pandemic kind of took us all by surprise?
I was certainly taken by surprise, Mark. I mean, the news of the pandemic came out on March 13th or 12th, and my birthday is March 20th. My mother's birthday is March 21st. It's the first time I've never seen my mother on either one of our birthdays. So what happened was, it was total chaos, as you know, and the pandemic hit, and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to protect my clients? And I realized, things are going to change quickly and maybe for a long time. So I was trying to think about, how can I help my clients in certain goals and things that I might want to do while I'll have a little bit more time and I'm going to be home a lot. And those three things were writing. I really enjoy writing and really didn't have much time to do so. Well-being, working on your health, and learning how to cook. So I've done pretty well on two of those three. The cooking is still a work in progress. But so what happened was I started writing briefs for my clients. And when the Triple P came out, which for those people that don't know what that means, it was the original CARES Act signed by President Trump, the Payroll Protection Program. This program is designed to keep employees on the books and keep businesses alive. And I decided I could either stay home and watch Netflix and sit on the couch, or I could do something and be active. So I decided to really study and become an expert on the triple P, and then counsel my clients on the triple P. And I was writing I was writing weekly or bi-weekly briefings for my clients, and I put you guys on the list. And then, I really enjoyed the writing, and then we talked, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity about doing a financial column. And I felt like there's a lot of things that tie into your finances. So, for example, I don't know if you might want to pull this up, but the last weekend's paper, which was the article, The Financial Wave, which I don't know if you can see this, but I have it right here, 10 life changes that could extend your life. There's a tie-in to, being healthy, taking care of yourself, drinking enough water, working on your well-being, and then also planning out your future, planning out your finances, because a lot of stress is self-induced. And if you have a game plan for life and retirement and have a budget, you're going to be less stressed out, which also is going to help you as far as your health. So your health and your wealth, in my opinion, are correlated. And, so that's originally, I was planning, I never planned on writing for the paper. But I thought it was a really cool thing when, you contacted me. And I think, way back to when I was in PS 114 on 135th Street, I would read The Wave, and to read The Wave as a little kid and then write for The Wave is really special.
Robert, with this pandemic, and you've been in the industry for decades, is there a rise in the amount of attention or the amount of things going on in the financial business because people have more time, maybe because they're home in financial planning? Are more people doing it these days?
Absolutely, Walter. That's a good question. So, I found, and I did one of my earlier columns in The Wave was, 10 unforeseen positives of COVID-19. So I found that people are home and they're becoming a little introspective and reevaluating relationships and reevaluating their finances. And this is a really good time to do so. And also the government has given us some, they've relaxed some rules, like being able to withdraw twice as much out of your 401k, hardship withdrawals. It used to be 50,000. You can now take 100,000 out. There are people that have incomes are lower, much lower than usual this year. And there's the Uncle Sam is allowing you to convert a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA, and you can spread out that tax over 3 years. You used to not only be able to do it for 1 year. So, there's about a 60-day window right now between now and December 31st where there's some really good financial moves that people can do that, as of New Year's Day are going to vanish. So,
well, look, everybody certainly keep in touch with you by reading The Financial Wave every week in The Wave, Robert. But what's other ways that people can pick your brain and follow you for more financial advice?
Well, I'll put this up. This is my ad in The Wave. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm available by email, rob@insurancedoctor.us. I give my clients my cell phone. I have a unique business model where, I call myself the anti-insurance agency because, most agencies you're calling, you're getting a gatekeeper. It could take a couple of days for a call back. I have the reverse business model where I quarterback a team of advisors that are independent. They work with me, not for me. So if it's not my forte, we get multiple eyeballs on any type of client situations, like a think tank. And so people can call me direct. In fact, I've been in touch with John Roberts recently. He read my article on refinancing and renegotiating all of your debt, because during COVID, you could renegotiate all your debt right now. You can go to your cable company, go to your phone company, and renegotiate your bills. And so John read it, reached out to me, and we've been in contact about him looking at a refinance as well.
Well, thank you, Robert. Really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Great job. I love your podcast. Keep up the good.
Thanks. Now it's our podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Yours. That meant you. He wasn't saying me.
We're back here. Usually this is the point where we go to our buddy Matt Larson from our hometown, who is helping to produce this podcast. youtube.com/segment. Hey, Matt.
Hey,
Now,
good morning,
this week we, with our hometown's help and Matt's help, we started a process where we're going to do a subscriber live, a segment every week where our subscribers get a chance, subscribers only, get a chance to ask us a question about an issue or something about the paper. So, so Matt, did anybody chime in this week?
Yeah, it's a great question. We had a bunch of people coming on. We've got a couple listening in here. People have come on and left. That's kind of the nature of these things. We did have a question a little bit ago on the auto collision, Allison's story about leaving the accident without a police report. They were just wondering, is this something that's been under consideration, you think, for a while? I saw in the article, this is from LA, did this first. Is this something that they've been thinking about doing, or is it really like a response to COVID? Because another thing I saw is like,
Matt, I think it's a combination of things. I'm sure I'm sure Walter can speak to it as well. That I think that a lot of things have come into kind of worlds colliding, right? So the defunding the police, and Bill de Blasio did not really want to defund the police. So what he did was he created a shell game. And what he did was he looked at what are the things that cops are doing that if I took away from them, that they really wouldn't get too upset about. And I think dealing with auto accidents where there's no, anything other than a fender bender,
no violence.
Get them out of there. Dealing with, people who are mentally ill, get the cops out of there. They're not really trained, at least not all of certainly the officers at the ground level aren't really trained. They're trained to, take the situation and make it go away. They're not trained professionals where they can talk someone off a ledge, or especially if that person might be violent. So I think it's one of those kind of, let's move resources away from that and move it to somewhere else. So I think really that,
if you think about it,
is where it comes from.
If a cop works a shift, 8 to 4 or 8 to 6, and if you've been in an accident and you've called the police, it's a 2-hour job for like 2 of them. That's a lot of time. If you look
with no arrests, usually,
and it's paperwork and it's talking to what really happened, and so maybe there could be another agency that goes out to an accident scene. I don't know. I mean, so the police respond to that, and they can't respond to something critical like saving somebody's life. So I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense. To do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I also think it's important for people to know that. It's important for people to know. See, look, there's always stuff that we can get outraged about, right? That we're going to scream and yell and bang our shoe on the table. But really, at the end of the day, what we handle day to day and what we get through day to day, what we think is routine stuff, is really how we, are able to go home and watch a little TV before we go to bed, instead of, like we took care of that. I got into an accident. Didn't have to sit there for 3 hours. We exchanged information. We got the insurance companies involved. The insurance company will come out and do what they need to do. And we didn't have to sit there for 3 hours for the cops to take statements.
And to take an hour to come.
Right. So, certainly I think it's something that people should know about.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess in my mind, it was always like the cops had to be there to determine or rule on who was at fault, type of thing. Maybe if that's not in question at all. If that was in question, you probably still want to call the cops, I would think.
Sure. Or there could be another agency that is better equipped to determine who was at fault. I'm not sure a cop, if they're doing that twice a day out of all the other stuff that they do, then why are they the experts on whose fault it was? And you know how it works. I mean, look at you. They say, you look to the left. That means you're lying. They don't know. And that's happened to me. They think you're lying because you twitch or something like that, or you look down when you tell them. That means you're lying. So I think it's maybe there'll be another agency sometime soon that'll take care of traffic accidents, which is cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Specialists. Okay. Well, I just want to announce, like, make sure everyone that's on the call knows, and just for the future, maybe we can mention this in the very beginning, the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel. If you want to open that up, if you have any questions, drop them in there. Any more questions? I think we just had one other thing. Oh, with the poll that you mentioned at the beginning, Mark.
Yes.
The poll, it was on your website, right?
Yep.
For a while. Okay, cool. Now, I guess I'm just curious, or people are curious, in the future, are there other polls, or is there an area on the website for polls, or is it usually?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of polls, Matt. It's something that Walter brought to the table last week to our editorial team. That it's something that we feel that because we have a dedicated, audited readership, because we have so many subscribers, because we have so many people that are online subscribers as well. Right. We have people who sign up to read our stuff. We have people who pay subscriptions who are that invested in us. Right. So that is a tool, that is something that's very valuable to us. So why not, it's a resource for everyone. It's a resource for elected officials. It's a resource for businesses. It's a resource, for our other advertisers that are interested in knowing what people think about a certain thing. If we did a poll tomorrow about, with Thanksgiving, will you be ordering out food instead of cooking for your family, because no one's going to be traveling on Thanksgiving. So businesses, people, subscribers, they all want to know answers to certain questions. And we all know that polling is not perfect, but the polling that we do is going to be more accurate than most, because we know who our readership is.
I called the Siena research guy to ask him if they could do some polling on, and Marist as well, on certain smaller things that we don't go small. And why not? Why wouldn't you do a small poll? I think, when you're building your community, when you want the residents, I think the legislators want to know what the residents think of certain things. And instead of just talking to their friends, a Democrat talking to other Democrats, why don't we do, we should have a poll, because we've got both sides of the aisle, people who are involved civically. So we're going to do different polls on different things, on the tolls on the bridge. That were supposed to come down, on what they think about the development in Arvern, and the one-way streets in Arvern. We think polls are a good way, and a good way to let the people who make decisions know what the people in our neighborhood think. And we do it by email, by social media. We have a daily email blast, as you know, called the Daily Beachcomber, that we send out every morning. People subscribe to that. So we typically, we went out through that. We got about 1,000 responses on the political polls that we did. And we want to know, our culture here depends on our involvement with political things. So we want to be the political pollster out here. And we'll let people know how our residents and readers think.
Right, and we won't just do them during elections. We'll do polling, and if people feel a certain way about an issue, we'll let the elected officials know, hey, by the way, your readership here is either really happy with the job you're doing, or they're really not happy with the job you're doing. And we've engaged with them a lot. So they've been on the podcast. We did a whole bunch of podcasts and audio podcasts and video podcasts with all the officials in the last couple of weeks, but we do it all throughout the year. So the polling will allow us to kind of even have more of that boots on the ground type of information moving forward. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited about the success of Rockaway Fridays with the Wave. And thanks, as always, Matt, for producing the segment. And, look forward to chatting after the show.
So we're probably going to have a poll, and I'm sorry, on the story Allison did with the NYPD, and have you gotten into an accident recently? Are you?
Oh, that's good.
Feel unnerved when the police show up, or would it be better to have an agency? So the polls are going to come out of our editorial meeting today about the Allison story.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that idea. The other thing I was thinking of is it'll probably uncover some interesting stories for you too, as you poll the audience.
Right.
And then you look into the poll, and now suddenly a story has come from the poll, but you could also poll people on the stories from last week, man. That is awesome. Very good. Well, I look forward to it. We're always looking for feedback on this show. So if anyone, before you leave, just let us know how you heard about it. Probably it was from a newsletter, but maybe you heard about it some other way, this show today. So thanks very much, guys. I'll jump off for now, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Thanks,
So, the last thing, like we do every week now, the last thing we want to focus on is our wave maker, and that is this week's wave maker is Dr. Ernest Horowitz. And, the reason why we picked Dr. Horowitz is really interesting on a number of different levels. Dr. Horowitz is someone who has been, let's put it this way, as the editor of the paper, I come into contact with our readers on a regular level. Most of the time, it's because they didn't like something that we wrote, or because it's, and this is our Wavemaker page. And Kerry Murtha is our reporter / columnist that does the Wavemakers every week. And this actually came about because our community editor, Ray Van, who does, Ray Van not only loves the Wave and has been working for the Wave for a long time before he became community editor. He's one of our freelance reporters and was an excellent one. He grew up here. He was born and raised here, still lives here, walks to work every day. And Ray has been amazing, like with picking a block to have a paper boy deliver the paper that week to get people to sign up for home delivery. So Dr. Horowitz is somebody who reads the paper every week. He's been a subscriber forever. He liked having a paper boy. So he had signed up for the paper boy. And then we didn't hear from him, for like a week or two. And then he called up to ask Ray, he wanted to re-up his subscription for the paper boy. So Ray said, and he had said, Mr. Horowitz, and Dr. Horowitz said, well, it's actually Dr. Horowitz. And then when I heard Ray was talking to Dr. Horowitz, I said, Ray, oh, he's great. He's always calling me and yelling at me about something, but in a very measured, very analytical way. He's great. The guy knows everything. And he's called me about when they were years ago, 5 years ago. I've been here almost 7 years. And during that time, I must have talked to Dr. Horowitz, I can't tell you how many times, about, he had been in Brighton Beach and he had saw how they were rebuilding some of the boardwalk with different things. And he's like, oh, do you think that they would do that? And, just different ideas. And I love when people do that. I love when people call the office. But most recently, Dr. Horowitz has been writing letters to the editor. And he's written quite a few during the time that I've known him. And, and then we just had the idea, let's do a Wavemaker column. And, I found out stuff about Dr. Horowitz I didn't even know. I did not know he was a Rockaway lifeguard. I did not know that he was saving lives as a lifeguard long before he became a gastroenterologist at First Peninsula Hospital and then St. John's Episcopal.
Wow.
So, that's what the great thing, Walter, about Wavemakers is that, every week you find out something new about a neighbor or a community member that you never knew.
Exactly. That's the whole point of it. Because people are humble.
Right.
People are not going to talk about what I do. So we're there to uncover it, which makes it a real interesting read, and we make people stars because they are stars.
Right, exactly. And that, and Kerry Murtha and people every week we hear, oh, thank you. Tell Kerry we said thanks. She's fantastic. And that was somebody from Walter. Walter back in the day had hired her a bunch of times as a freelancer. And when Walter took over the paper, Walter and his family took over the paper 2 years ago. She had reached out to Walter and Walter said, hey, do you need a really good reporter? So I brought Carrie in, talk to her. I think I hired her like in 30 seconds.
She was with the Staten Island Advance and Brains.
Yeah, it's great. Just great. I mean, she's so good. And when we were figuring out who was going to do the Wavemakers column, because we had somebody originally, but they just didn't have the time to do it. And Kerry does it every week. So, and that was the original vision for the column that Walter had brought to us. And I love it. It's one of the things I really look forward to reading every week. Look, it's been fun. Walter having me on this week.
You gonna invite me back?
We'll see. We'll see. Like I said, he's like Cosell, great call, and Keith Jackson's doing this great call in the 77 series, and I ruined it, and Cosell jumps right on it. Oh boy. Anyway, I'm Bill Butel. He's Roger Grimsey. This is Eyewitness News. No, seriously, it's Rockaway Fridays with the Wave. We're here every Friday, 9 o'clock. We really want to get that subscriber live segment going. So if you're watching this today, we will send out a link earlier in the week, next week on Monday. We'll send out a link so that you can sign up and you have a couple of days to get ready and hop on with us. I know a bunch of people were online. They didn't know maybe necessarily know how to ask questions. And if you're working at 9 o'clock and you don't have time to get on with us, just send me, just like you would send a letter to the editor, just send me an email during the week, editor@rockawave.com. That's editor@ROCKAWAVE.com. And we'll answer it live on the air. It doesn't matter if you're here or not. Of course, we want you to be here. But if you're not, we can certainly answer any questions that you have about the paper, about what we're doing, about our show, about why Walter, ruined it, why we're eating pizza at 9 o'clock in the morning. But look, that's Rockaway Fridays with the Wave. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you around the neighborhood.